Jump for joy as it rises the lowest amount since March of 2021, well over 2 years ago, with the DXY Bull Boys literally shattered after a massive continued dump for the DXY that appears to have absolutely no end in sight. And with the stock market setting new highs on this new CPI data, are the Bitcoin bulls finally locked and loaded, juiced and caboosed for a massive bullish bustulation? Right now, the price of Bitcoin sits firmly around that $30,000 level that we've been ranging in since the very beginning of July and the last week or so beginning of June. And this is completely massive for the Bitcoin price. We've gotten CPI data today, and we're going to be talking about that very briefly. But more importantly, we're seeing the stock market set new highs. We are seeing the DXY set new lows, and everything is coming together if you really do believe that Bitcoin is more likely to be busting over the next few months than it is to be dumping. And there's only 1 day and 18 hours left to sign up for my Femex trading competition. More details will be once we begin, but basically if you're interested, you can sign up using my link to Femex below, register. You only have less than 2 days to sign up, and there will be massive rewards and bonuses for doing that. But you just need a minimum of 250 USD in your account to participate if you sign up with the link below. So realistically, there's only two camps here, two big camps, as always. There's people that believe that over the next few months, as we get closer and closer to the halving, with roughly about 280 or so days until the halving, we will see Bitcoin rise and trade sideways, but ultimately rise, sideways, and then mega pump, giga pump, bull market. And the other camp is the exact opposite, where we literally have people drawing those lines on the charts of like, here we are at 30K. Next big move is going to be down to 25K, pump up to 28K, down to 20K, pump up to 25K, down to 15K, 20K, 10K, and stuff like that going on for like the next 2 years, which to me, I've read the arguments. I've seen that. I see absolutely no reason that would be something someone would say, unless you just have a massive amount of copium or hopium that like you sold at 20K and you're waiting to buy back in at 10K. There's really very little that makes sense at that point, in my opinion. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Anybody that tells you that they know for sure what's going to happen is completely lying. Nobody knows. Literally anyone on the planet, whether it's the CEO of BlackRock or even like JP Morgan, even they don't know. Even they have absolutely no idea. In fact, they were wrong about Bitcoin for the last 10 years to begin with. So in fact, they probably know less than anyone what's going to happen with the Bitcoin market. But the point is here, those are the two main narratives, that we're going to just continue to dump into oblivion for the next 2 years and go below 10K. And there's some in between where people think, okay, 15, 20. But the other camp is basically we're slowly entering the bull market, and each next big move, besides the sideways, will be massive pumping into 100K, 150K, and potentially even a little higher than that for Bitcoin, and altcoins as well, having massive pumps as well. And I personally believe that we are getting closer and closer to a new bull market every day that goes by. And with CPI, as we saw today, continuing to lessen, this is big. But let's start off here. JJ Cycles on Twitter talking about a massive ascending triangle on the NASDAQ. And we actually see today the S&P, SPX, look at this, a fresh high because of this, the CPI, massive pump here. What is the NASDAQ doing? Look at this too, another fresh high for the NASDAQ. And Bitcoin lately has not been super correlated as it usually is to the stock market, but this still is not a bad thing. This is ultimately still good news for assets in general, in my opinion. But with that being said as well, I do think that's very likely we're seeing that. But Titan of Crypto talking about a 50,000 Bitcoin price target sooner than later. While many are still expecting a $10,000 to $12,000 Bitcoin this year, later on this year, he thinks the opposite. And I agree, absolutely. I'm in that same camp. I believe that as well. That 10K is a lot less likely than 50K. I personally, my target's more around the low 40s over the next month or two. Could 50 happen? Absolutely. I'm a little more conservative with that, but I don't think that's unreasonable at all. And then Mags the Scalping Pro on Twitter as well, talking about the EMA ribbon. Every time it flips this weekly EMA ribbon into support, it triggers a massive bull run. Is this time different? And I personally don't think it is different. I personally think that, look at this. You can see the trajectory over the next 12 or so months. It makes sense. Okay. You don't have to reach very far for a scenario like this to make sense to you. Whereas a target where we're this far in the cycle and still people saying 15, 10 $1,000 Bitcoin, you have to reach so far for that to be realistic. You did not have to reach very far for that to be realistic 6 months ago when things were different. But over the last 6 to 7 months, the market has shown us the trajectory. Inflation has started to cool down a little bit, which is all we really needed. And the worst of the worst news seems for now to not be hurting these markets. So, that's my perspective on that. Bitcoin Archive talking about all 5 Bitcoin ETF applications from the CBOE adding a surveillance sharing agreement with Coinbase, right? Pressure building on the SEC to approve. I think it's only a matter of time. But let's take a look at this. So here's Jay Powell. U.S. consumer price inflation rises 3% in June, which is the lowest that it's risen since March of 2021. Core CPI rises to 4.8%, the lowest since October of 2021. So that's good news. Headline is 3% versus what was expected, which is 3.1, so lower than expectations. Core is 4.8%. Expected was 5.1, so that's a decent amount lower than what was expected. So those are 2 downside misses, which is good. If you want to have hope in this market, if you want to be somewhat bullish, that's very good news. And this actually should lower the odds of another Fed rate hike this month, because those Fed rate hikes data are like basically almost saying it's guaranteed we'll get another Fed rate hike. Many people believe we'll get 2 more and then be done. And I think that's realistic, but I think the CPI today maybe brings that down a little bit. So maybe we only need 1 more. But it's still too early to tell for that, in my opinion. But we did see transportation rise 8%, shelter 7%, and then you see fuel and oil down 36%, gasoline down 26%. And so overall, CPI was about 3%. And those are good numbers, right? Obviously, inflation is still horrible. Inflation is still really, really bad. But the trend that we're seeing it shift is basically that's the best we could hope for right now. TED Talks Macro talking about this. Institutional flows into Bitcoin remain strong, yet this size will look like a drop in the ocean if spot ETFs are approved. The market has definitely not priced in hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars of new capital inflow. That's why I think that, yes, there are some bad things that could go wrong over the next year for these markets, but I think people are so attuned and expecting of those bad things that they're a little blinded by the good things that are coming as well that could happen. Nobody knows for sure. This market could pump massively and it could dump as well, even though we dumped the last 18 months or the last year. But I think so many people are so bearish because of what just happened over the last year that they're blinded by the fact that a lot of the bearishness is behind us and they're still holding on to that sentiment, that emotion. If you get beat down in a bear market, sometimes it's hard to let go of those feelings and you'll just think, well, I'm going to get beat down forever. And that's exactly why psychology ruins people's ability to trade, right? It's literally that simple in many respects. But Bitcoin balances on exchanges. Dennis Porter on Twitter talking about this. The BlackRock ETF, positive coverage by Forbes, approaching the halving, and this chart showing coins leaving exchanges have him feeling that once Bitcoin does pump, it will be the largest upward move in Bitcoin's history. I believe that, yes, it's harder and harder to pump Bitcoin's price the bigger and bigger it gets because it requires more and more capital. But right now, if institutions are truly getting in, which a Bitcoin spot ETF would 1,000,000% allow that to happen, we will see price movement like we've never seen, trillions of dollars, if we get a spot ETF approval. And it will blow people's minds. People are still very bearish on Bitcoin. Ask your friend that you told about Bitcoin 2 or 3 years ago that hates Bitcoin now. Ask them if they like Bitcoin again. No, they still don't. They still hate it, right? We're still less than half of the all-time highs of Bitcoin. It was at 69K. Nice. Now it's at 30K. So if somebody bought in at 50, 60, 65K at Bitcoin, do you think they're excited that Bitcoin's at 30K? No. People still hate it, right? Engagement is still so low. There's still no new people coming into crypto. Myself and other people that make content have this data very clearly, right? The people that are watching these videos are basically the exact same people that were here 2 years ago. There's no new people coming in right now. And those people are going to be shocked in the next year or so. If Bitcoin has that move to 100K plus and altcoins go crazy, they're going to say, whoa, what happened? I thought it was dead. And the cycle will repeat like it always does, where people then FOMO in at the top, put in the top for people that have been here for years. It's not, I wish that wouldn't happen, But the people that don't believe, and the people that don't hold Bitcoin, the people that believe that it's going to zero, all that stuff, there are more people that believe that than there are people that believe that it is going to $1 million. And until that changes, the people that have that long-term belief will be the ones that benefit and reap the most reward from this market. And remember to sign up with my link below if you're interested. Only 2 days left to enter this trading competition on Femex. It takes 30 seconds to sign up if you click the link in the description below. Without any further ado, that's for me.